the people that lived 1,000 years ago are in either of these two cases, or either they don't have any descendants now, or they are the ancestors of everyone that lives here. And one of the things I thought at some point when I explained to you that my line was here in that region for 4,000 years, so most of the people in my paternal line could not speak with each other because the people spoke different languages.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. You will be probably noticing some changes around because this will be our first episode in English. The main reason is because we will be talking about the genealogy and our ancestors in a non-Hispanic country, but more present than you think in our genealogy trees. We will be talking about the genealogy in Portugal. And for that, I have this distant cousin. I had the luck to find through a mitochondrial DNA match. Very odd, right? But we will be covering some notes. We will be sharing notes on the peculiarities of genealogy in that country and in our Hispanic culture. So welcome, Gonçalo Marques.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, we have a very diverse audience. Some of them live in the USA, and they are English-speaking people. But the idea is of this project, of this podcast, part of the Mahena project, is to also cover the non-Hispanic community. Portugal and Brazil. You are Portuguese speaking countries and probably a diaspora that you might have. So that fits perfectly because we do have common roots with you. This is the reason you're here, because we have a common match that it was from a subject from a DNA test. We will be talking about it, but also from my own genealogy. And that's amazing. When I did a DNA test, I got 40% Portuguese DNA. I wasn't able to explain it. And then I found some records indicating I did had Portuguese ancestors directly in Cuba, where I was born. But also in the Canary Islands, a lot of them descended from Portuguese people. And so when I saw Portuguese calling me, telling me I have a match, that was amazing. That was, for me, that was amazing. And I'm grateful to have met you, to learn a lot from you. But let us introduce you to the audience. Talk us a little about you.
Okay, so I am a researcher at the university. I do some theoretical biology. And in my spare time, I dedicate time to genealogy and now genetics. And so for me, it was also a surprise how many connections I could find with Spanish-speaking countries. It's amazing, the connections that we have. So I am from Lisbon. I am the first generation that is born in Lisbon. My parents are from a small village in the interior north of Portugal. And most of my genealogy is from that region. The nearest city is called Guarda. And so since I have this very focused genealogy in a very restricted area, I wasn't expecting to find so many people around the world matching me with this diaspora. Oh, Brazilian, yes, Brazilian was I was expecting, but in Cuba or in the south of US or Mexico with the Spanish roots, it was a really nice discovery.
So, how do you started to get interested in your genealogy, in your family history?
So I started when I was doing my course in the university, so many years ago. And one of the nice things in Portugal is that you can find the documents in a centralized way. So at that time, I would go to a place where it's called Torre do Tombo in Lisbon, where I had most of the documents available, and I started doing my tree. And I spent lots of hours looking at microfilms, looking at records, piecing up the generation after generation. And so I could build a big tree until the beginning of the 17th century. I am lucky to have records available. So most of my tree I, I could build until the 17th century. But then I'm lucky in this point, and then I'm unlucky in another point. Is that my ancestors are for the rural part of Portugal. They live in small villages, so there is not much more information other than the church records. So I know when they were baptized, I know when they married, I know when they died, and that's basically it. I don't know much more. I know where they lived, where they went around, and so to know more, I have to learn more about the history of what was happening around there to get an idea on what was happening with my ancestors at the time. And so after I did this tree, then for a while I didn't develop much more around this. But then in 2018, my partner offered me a genetic test. And this was a new door that opened. And so I started with a white test for me. I did it. I didn't know what to expect. I was lucky that my result ended up in a branch where I met a cousin that is distant from me 1,000 years from now. And he was really good with this, explaining me the results, what happened. And then I got the test from it. So I started to test other lines in my tree. So I asked my cousin to test, I asked my uncle to test, I asked my granduncle, and to understand what is the origin of all the lines in my tree that I can find. And so this is an ongoing project. I have tested several lines already. I test paternal lines, and I test also maternal lines when I can find people. And I've been finding lots of interesting things along the way.
So, from a personal curiosity, it has get widespread somehow.
Yes.
Yeah. Look
Much.
at. Yeah. Okay. I'm interested in knowing which of those lineages is the one matching with mine.
Okay.
So but I will share something first with the people because I gave somehow an introduction, but I guess these slides can be helpful. So what I was telling was in America, all the countries we have in America, in North, South, Central, we have a lot of Canary Islanders that settled that region for centuries. But the Canary Islanders itself, they were descendant of both Spanish and Portuguese as main contributors. Some of those Portuguese were direct travelers, or they first traveled to settle in the Atlantic islands, Azores, Madeira. And then I will show some examples, but we also have direct ancestors from Portugal. I will use some examples I have on my personal research. For example, Francisco Santos Lima, one of the Lima lines that we have in the Havana countryside region. Not the only one. There is another Lima line which is older and also from Portugal, but this one is from Machico. That's right?
Yes,
Machico.
Mexico.
Okay.
Very nice.
From the island of Madeira. I was recently able to get the baptismal record, and that's amazing. You need to explain to me, please, how is the dynamics in the inheritance of last names in Portugal? Because a lot of the Canary Islanders used some of that to inherit last names, and sometimes it's chaotic for us to understand. We also have this case in Cuba. This is not mine. This is from a relative descending from Sebastiana Lopez from Lisbon itself, who traveled and lived in the Havana countryside. And most of the Maldonado family descend from this woman. And the two examples coming from Canaria are the Curbelo family. So far, all the Curbelos come from a single source. These Curbelos were from Azores. They went to La Laguna, Tenerife. Also, the Resende family, coming from some place in Portugal that lived in El Sausal, Tenerife. So these are a few examples of ancestors. My ancestors, I descend from them, but not directly from Portugal. They did this step in Canary Islands or in Azores, Madeira. And this is the case that connected us. The tester, who passed away 1 year ago, but he had 105 years old. That's why we tried to do this test on priority on him. He had a maternal line, a son of Catalina, who was the daughter of Josefa Hernandez Silva, a Portuguese last name. Josefa Silva de Lima was descendant both of a Silva coming from Madeira and Lima coming from Madeira, the Lima case we saw before. But, however, we find that the maternal line arrives from Mazo in La Palma, one of the 7 Canary Islands. Today there are 8. But from Mazo, we lose the track, the genealogical track, and but thanks to the match with you, which are the only exact matches that this sample has, we do know that at some moment on the history, we had a Portuguese female line settling in Mazo or in La Palma that came from a common area around Guarda. That's right, Guarda?
Guarda, yes. Well, we don't know if it is exactly from Guarda. Maybe there is some place in Portugal where a line went to Guarda and the line went to Canarias.
Well, that's it. But that's amazing. We don't know much more, but we both, you and I, have developed this lineage at around 1640s, both the same time. But yours were in Guarda and mine were in Mazo. Mine and the tester, who is a relative of my wife. And I'll be, that's all what I was going to show, but I leave you with the with the rest. So if
Shall I show you my lines where they connect me?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Do you see my tree?
Yeah, I can see it. Okay.
Yes. Is it small or do
Is
you
it
need?
a little small?
Okay,
But
I can put it bigger. Is it okay or more?
I guess I can see it there. Okay, that's perfect.
Okay. Okay. This is me here, my parents, my grandparents, and so on. Okay. I use DNA Painter to put my tree, and I use this to put my haplogroups. Okay.
Mhm.
So this haplogroup that you see here is the one that connects with your line. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's my maternal grandfather. My maternal grandfather is the one that has uh, this line from this haplogroup. And then there is another one. Let me show you here because I tested two people. That's why you have there two um, two Portuguese flags. I tested the line of my maternal grandfather, and I tested this. So if this is my grandmother, the mother of my grandmother, and this is the maternal grandfather of my grandmother that also shares the same. And I don't know this by the documental genealogy. I know because I tested a cousin that has also this line, and so I know they are connected. And their connection should be in the same region because these are two lines from the same region. But so two lines that I didn't know that had a connection by looking at the documents. Now I know that they are connected by doing the test. In this case, the mitochondrial DNA test. Yeah.
So there are two different lineages and on different generations. So that tells us that that was a lineage that lived for a long time on that area.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. It should be at least so. The two lines I can follow to the beginning of the 17th century. The two lines, so and they are separate, which means that the common ancestor must have been in at least in the 16th century or before. I cannot point out exactly which century it was in, but at least in the 16th century, the line should be in that region of Guadra, probably before. But
Yeah.
now mitochondrial DNA doesn't give us so much detail than the paternal DNA, so it's harder to say exactly when it arrived in that region.
What is the average time in accumulating one mutation? 500, 600 years?
I think it's in the mitochondrial DNA. It could be even more, but I don't know the average time. But the steps could be even more. In the in the Y, you can have as low as 100 years or less.
Yeah, it's bigger. It's bigger. It's a bigger
Yeah,
molecule. Yeah,
yeah.
but the mitochondrial DNA, I recently got my own personal DNA, mitochondrial DNA. Apparently, is from Spain. Mm, I have been able to trace it to Canary Islands, but I have matches in France, in in a lot of places, and that tells us that it might be maybe 1,000 years old,
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
maybe. But so talking about years old and thousands, let's talk a little about the so the people can understand what is Portugal and a little about the history of Portugal, so we can. So
Okay. But can I tell you about the surnames in Portugal?
yeah,
You are
we can do it.
you mentioned that in your.
Yeah,
Let
yeah,
me
we can
explain.
do it. Okay.
This is my name. Okay, I have two surnames. Two surnames here. How does it work in Portugal? My last surname is from my father. Okay, so this is my father, and
Okay,
I get.
I cannot see the pointer.
Okay. So I'm not sharing the correct. Let me let me.
Oh, okay. You were sharing the tree. The
Exactly. So let me go back. I'm not sharing correctly the window. Share. Okay. Instead of this, I'll share entire screen. Okay. Okay. Let me then share my. So this is my full name. You are seeing it, right? Okay. So I have two surnames here. Okay. The last surname was given to me by my father. So this is the name of my father, and I got the Marques from my father, and he got Marques from his father, and so on. That's how it works. The last name comes from the patrilineal line, usually. And my other surname comes from the last name of my mother that got her from her father. Okay? That's how it usually works. This is my name is a common name. Two names, sometimes one, and then two surnames. Sometimes people also get two surnames for each side. So sometimes people get four surnames. So I could have named Gonçalo José Simões Marques Martins. Gonçalo José Martins Monteiro Simões Marques would also be a possibility for my name.
It's the order. It's the inverse order of the Spanish culture
Exactly.
of last names. Okay,
Exactly.
that helps. That helps a lot. Okay, thank you so much. But I think we can use your own YDNA results to illustrate the different moments on the history of Portugal.
Yes, I can show you. Let me show it here. Okay, this is
Excellent.
my the branch of my paternal line. The thing you see here in orange is where I fit in. I'm one of these Portuguese flags that you see here. And my line has been in Portugal and probably in the region of Guarda, interior north of Portugal, for more than 4,000 years, it seems, because most of the people that are in this branch that is more than 4,000 years old are from Portugal. So what happened from that point on? So 4,000 years ago, we have what is called the Bronze Age cultures in this region. Okay. Then we have what are called the Atlantic Bronze Age, and that is there is a connection throughout the Atlantic European coast between several parts of our continent. So if I show you here, there seems to be a connection between the western part of the Iberian Peninsula with the western part, northeastern of France and the British Isles. They have the same type of culture, the same type of monuments at this time. So there must be connections through sea during this time. Here you see with these different points, this is a different type of structures that are built, and you see that it is a different type of culture in this region. Okay. So we are connected with the British Isles for a long time now, Portugal. Then we have the appearance of the Castro culture. So these small villages called castros that you can find in the north of Portugal, in Galicia. This kind of rounded houses with stone. Advancing more, we have then the arrival of the Romans here. So the Iberian Peninsula becomes part of the Roman Empire, more or less around this time.
The current Portugal was the Lusitania.
A big part of Portugal, not all Portugal. Lusitania is have the southern part of Portugal. It's more the central and northern part of Portugal, and a bit of Spain also in that area. And then, so for some centuries, we are part of the Roman Empire. Then the Roman Empire falls, and at this point, we have several Germanic people that come into the Iberian Peninsula. Some of them are the Suebi that occupy the northern western part of Galicia and the north of Portugal. They make a kingdom there. But there are also the Visigoths that have most of the peninsula, and you have the Alans also, the Vandals. So several of them come to the Iberian Peninsula. Some of them pass to the north of Africa and continue to the other side. So the Iberian Peninsula is always very connected with the north of Africa. Also during the Roman Empire also has a big part of the north of Africa. And so there are lots of exchanges of people also with the north of Africa. Sometimes we forget that because we are from Europe, Africa is a different thing, but it's not. We are in the connection between Africa and Europe. Then we have the invasions from the north of Africa, and we have the period of the Islamic Iberia. So the Iberian Peninsula is conquered from the south. And finally, then we have the Christian kingdoms that conquer from the north, and Portugal appears around the year 1100. Okay, so we only have something that we can call Portugal from that point on. So lots of things have happened before, lots of time have passed, lots of things that influence the way we are part of the history of this place. And one of the nice things is that I can see, now that I have tested several lines, I can see in my lines this history in my genealogical tree. I can see where the lines came from. I have lines that are here from more than 4,000 years ago, like my paternal line, but I have lines that come from the north of Africa. I have lines that come from the north of Europe, maybe with some Germanic tribe that came after the Roman Empire. So I can find the history in my genealogy.
Then with the age of discoveries, Portugal had a lot of territories in America. Brazil was probably the largest, but you also had territories in Africa. And so, I mean, there's a lot of diaspora with Portuguese DNA probably doing matches with you, probably calling you, trying to find a common root. Yeah.
There are not a lot of people doing tests in Africa, for example.
No,
which is
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I have found, so for example, with my partner as a match in China, and in China, yes, and Portugal had a small territory in China called Macau, very close to Hong Kong. So that was part of Portugal for more time than Hong Kong was for the British. And we also have Timor-Leste, so that was borders Indonesia, for example. There was also places in Malaysia that then passed on to the Dutch. In the Middle East, also in India, we had Damau, Diu, and Goa. That in the 60s then became part of the Indian. Became part of India in the 60s. So the Portuguese Empire is one of the last ones that was dissolved into different countries.
it was a huge empire, like the Spanish one. I mean, they are not so different. Somehow there were three crowns in this area in the Iberian Peninsula: the crown of Portugal, the crown of Castile and Leon, and the crown of Aragon. Those three crowns had basically the new world by themselves, and most of Africa and a lot of places in Asia, and for example, Philippines was a Spanish territory. Was one of the last Spanish territories in the outer sea. But I mean that's interesting because the language, for example, your language, it has a common root with Galicia. You have similar culture, you have similar history up to some point, and the language too is. I mean,
True.
and we in Spanish we can understand it when written. Basically, we can understand it, but the old writings are easier for us to understand because they are more common to the
True,
old
true.
Spanish. Yeah, that's amazing. But also there is a lot of genetic affinity between Spain and Portugal. So let's talk a little about, since we have a haplogroup here, let's talk a little about the haplogroups that we find in Portugal. But first, since this is our first program in English, can we explain to people what is a haplogroup?
Okay, let me explain a little bit. Let me see if I can do this in a presentation mode. Okay, do you see the presentation?
Excellent. Yes.
Okay. So each one of us has 23 pairs of chromosomes in the nucleus of our cells, usually, unless there are some diseases that make it that you have problems and you might have something different than 23 pairs of chromosomes. But what's usual is this 23 pairs. Each time you have an offspring, you usually pass half of the genetic information to this offspring, and the other parent gives the other half of the genetic information. But with a special pair of chromosomes, this one that you can see here as XY, this is not exactly what happens. What happens is that if the father passes the Y, so let me show you here. So if you have a man has an X and a Y chromosome, and a woman has an X, two X chromosomes. So if the father passes the Y chromosome, you get a son, and if he passes the X chromosome, you get a daughter. So what happens is that the Y chromosome is passed always through the paternal line, which is very good for the research of the patrilineal lines. Okay, so it means that if you have a tree like this, where you have the son and the daughter here, and then you have the parents, the grandparents, and so on, the Y chromosome is being passed always through this line. So the son got it from his father, that got it from his father, and so on. What is also interesting is that sometimes when you copy a chromosome, you don't copy it exactly the same. And so, for example, suppose that from this generation, you got an error, then this error is passed on to the next generation. And this is very good because now we have some kind of crumbles that can tell us where does this Y chromosome come from. So let me show you. So suppose that you start with a man with a certain Y chromosome. In the next generation, he has two sons. One where the copy is exactly the same, but one with a mistake. Okay, it means that all the next man that will be born from this man will have this mistake, and we can trace it back to this man. So if now we have another generation, we can have something like this. If we have another generation, we can have one that has now a different mistake, and so on. So when we have these generations, we have several mistakes that gives us. So everyone that has this mistake in blue, we know that comes from a certain man. The ones in yellow must have come from another man with this yellow haplogroup. So these are what is called the haplogroups. So I put it here in colors, but usually we use a code with letters and numbers, which is very it can be very hard to understand, but the meaning is very simple. Is that these numbers and codes is just one man that has a certain mutation in the Y chromosome, and so this is basically what we call an haplogroup. In my case, my haplogroup, I come from this branch where this that you see here are Y17224 is the man that has this mutation with this number. It doesn't matter the name, so we could have called it João. João is John in Portuguese. João, so we call this man is called João. And João had these descendants, and these people that tested all descend from this João here. Okay, and then we can reconstruct the tree. So my line is here. I have a common ancestor with this person here, and then a common ancestor with this next one, and then on with these other people. So this is the idea of what is an haplogroup. So you wanted me to talk a little bit about haplogroups in Portugal. So
which are common haplogroups in Portugal, or somehow if I had certain haplogroup, how can I say this is very likely to be Portuguese or not?
So let me start from the first question. What most of the Portuguese belong to the haplogroup R. So you see here, mine starts with an R. R is a big branch that happens that lots of people in Europe belong to this branch. So, and more than 50% of Portuguese also belong to this branch. So if you know that you are from the haplogroup, you will know that you have a strong probability of being from Europe. Okay. Then there are some sub haplogroups that are called R1b and R1a, and these two are most certainly European. And then you have others like R2 that are more connected with India and other places. Okay, now inside in Portugal, R1b is the one that is the most appears most. But there are lots of people that are R1b and that are not from Portugal. So if you know that you are R1b, you cannot say that you are from Portugal. Okay, you have to go to the detail of knowing which branch you belong to in R1b to understand where your line comes from. In my case, I see from the tested people here that is most probably a branch that is more than 4,000 years here in Portugal. But inside R1b, there is one of the most prominent here is called the RDF27. That's 80% of the people that are R1b in Portugal are part of this group. This is a group that is very Iberian. There are also people in the Atlantic part of Europe with this group, but Iberia is very much prominent in this branch. And my branch is part of this RDF27. Okay? if I can show you again my tree. Let's show you again my tree here. I can put it here in a different way to show you. And now why haplogroups? I have here a way of putting it in colors. Okay, so again, this is me here. This is my parents, my grandparents, and so on. Okay, what you see here in green are the people in my tree that belong to this RDF27. Okay, you see this green is, so you see most of the people in my tree are from this branch. So my tree is very typical from Portugal. This is a very typical branch in Portugal. Now, what you see here in yellow is people that belong to this EM81. This is also an important branch in Portugal, and this is a branch that appeared in North Africa. So if you belong to this branch, your line originated in North Africa. And now it could have come from North Africa during the Roman Empire, during the period where there was the Islamic Iberia, or could even come before the Roman Empire, because there were people going from Iberia to the north of Africa and the other way around, because we are connected for a long time. And people usually don't know, but we are connected with North Africa. And finally, you can see another green here, another type of green, and this, in this case, is a line that is also from the R1B branch, but is not from the RDF27, that is more typical in Portugal. It's from the RU106 here, that is typical from the north of Europe, the region of the Netherlands, Flanders, and this, and you can find in north of Germany. So this one is one of the lines that might have come here during the time that the Germanic tribes came to the Iberian Peninsula. I'm not sure, because I have a big time period where this line can come here, but it's a one possibility that history can tell us. So apart from these, the R and the E that you can see in my tree here, other important haplogroups in here are the J haplogroup, that is an important group that is from the Middle East region. So people that might have come here during the time of the Phoenicians. Before the Roman Empire, the Phoenicians were very important in the Mediterranean, and there were people that were in the Middle East, and they spread around in the Mediterranean, and some came here. Or it could be also Jewish. It depends on the specific branch where that you have, or they can also come from the north of Africa after the north of Africa is Islamized, from Islamization of the north of Africa. It can also come from there. Another important one is the I haplogroup. The I haplogroup is an haplogroup that is the oldest haplogroup that is in Europe. From all of these that I've mentioned now, the I haplogroup is the one that is here for longer in Europe. And so, and it is also an important haplogroup that you can say in Portugal. And then you have small examples of other haplogroups.
And what about the maternal haplogroups?
The maternal haplogroups, okay, the one that is typically European, it's the H haplogroup. So let me switch here to the maternal haplogroups. So to show, I don't have so many maternal haplogroups as I have Y. The reason is it's much easier to find a cousin with the same Y haplogroup because of the surnames. I can follow the surnames and find a cousin that has the same Y haplogroup that I need to test. But for the women is difficult. They are always changing surnames, and so it's harder to find the right person to test. So here in my tree you can see I have my haplogroup is J. J is very uncommon in Portugal, so it's not a common haplogroup. It's also an haplogroup that seems to have come from the north of Europe in the last few centuries. Not sure when. But apart from my specific haplogroup, my father is H. My paternal grandfather is H. My maternal grandfather is also H. So they are different branches of H, so you can see. But typical from Europe. I cannot say Iberian, typical Iberian, but H is typical from Europe. So it is thousands of years already in Europe, the H haplogroup.
H is one of the 7 main haplogroups in Europe. Have you read Seven Daughters of Eve, the book?
Yes, no, I haven't read it, but I know the book. I know.
Yeah, I recommend it. That's the gold mine, the pillar of the genetic genealogy by Brian Sykes. That's one of the haplogroups. He called the H descendant female lineages as descendants of Helen.
Yes.
Helen.
Yeah.
J was Jasmine, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah, that's excellent. J1, which one is it?
Mine is J1, but
J1 C.
It's J1 C3 A2.
C3. Okay, C3.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's excellent. I mean, that's Europe. You the most the most you will find is our European haplogroups. But you shown me on the preparations L paternal haplogroup, which is very, very odd.
Very, very odd. Exactly. So since I started this with the genetics, I've been learning lots of different things. And one thing that happened is that in the last couple of years, 2-3 years, I joined the Portuguese Genealogical Society. And one of the persons there did a test with this L haplogroup, which is very, very odd. And when I saw the result, I said, this is a very interesting result. If you want, I can have a look. And I joined with a couple of friends and colleagues, and we made a presentation to the Genealogical Society because of this haplogroup. And we are doing also an article for the publication of the Genealogical Society. Okay, this haplogroup, this person comes from this haplogroup that you can see here. It doesn't matter the letters and numbers that you see there. What is interesting is that you can find here in purple is the places where you can find people with this haplogroup. Okay? And when you see it here, close to the Caucasus is where you can find more people with this haplogroup. Okay? And if you look at exactly the result, you see that here this Portuguese flag is close to someone from Iran and Turkmenistan and Tajikistan. So there are people that are here in this region, Iran, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan. They are closer here. Looking at this result and going through this, so somehow this line came to Portugal between 2,900 years ago and 1,000 years ago. In this period, this line must have come from that region, because most of the people were from that region before, and then they are found in Portugal, because here what you see is a Portuguese flag and a flag from the Açores. Okay, this is a flag from the Açores. So these are two Portuguese lines. So in this period, what could have brought this line from here to here? What we know is that in this region, an important group of people that come from this region is what are called the Alans, or Alanos in Portuguese. The Alanos are from this region, and now the Alanos, the descendants of the Alans here, live in the region of Ossetia. That is a region that is part of Georgia and the south of Russia. So in this region, there are still people living there. And at some point, part of these people moved into the center of Europe at the border with the Roman Empire. When the Roman Empire fell, they entered in the Roman Empire together with the Visigoths and the Suevi that I mentioned, and lots of them went to the Iberian Peninsula. And so the hypothesis that is the strongest is that this line is part of these people that came from this region into Europe and then into the Iberian Peninsula. And so we have this. It's very nice to see that we can still find this type of things that we know from history happened, and then we can find in the DNA of some people, there are still some people that descend from these people that came after the fall of the Roman Empire. It's for me, it's amazing.
And it is a history that it's not so often to hear. The Alans, the movement of the Alans to Iberia. I have met other people with L haplogroups, and they cannot explain how far west that haplogroup came to Iberia. But that might be an explanation.
This might be an explanation. Of course, there could be other explanations, right? So there are some people of the Els that might have come southwards here to the region of Turkey or Middle Eastern region, and then moved through the Mediterranean and somehow went to other places in Europe. But
like the Phoenicians, I mean.
For example, as part of the Phoenicians, maybe some one or two people with L haplogroup could have done this. One important thing to have a look is that when you know exactly where you find, what are your closest matches? Are they in the region of more of the... So this is interesting here also, because the Alanic language is also an Indo-European language. So our language is part of a big family called Indo-European, right? Where there are not only most of the European languages are part of this family, except for a few exceptions like the Basque, but also languages in India. That's why it's called Indo-European. It's because they come from the same root. But one of the interesting things here is that the Alanic is also an Indo-European language. And what you see here, Iran, is also an Indo-European language. In Turkmenistan, they also speak another Indo-European language. So you see a pattern here that if someone goes, for example, to be part of the Phoenicians don't speak an Indo-European language. They speak a Semitic language. So they, of course, people can change, the lines can change language. But it's very interesting that in this branch in particular, we find this pattern of seeing these Indo-Europeans in most of the descendants of this branch. So it's good to put several pieces together, the branch and the languages and where the descendants are, to see if you find where it might come from.
Now that you mentioned the Basque language, the Euskera, you also had in those slides an RPH 1139 haplogroup.
Yes.
Also with an interesting history from.
So this is my line. Let me show you here. Right here. So the paternal line of my paternal grandmother, this line here, belongs to that branch that you mentioned. So I was investigating that branch to understand where it came from, and putting the pieces together. So I put up a map of where I can find people that descend from this branch. And one of the pattern that I can see from this is that this was a Basque branch, because I can find several people in the Basque country that are part of this branch. And then it spread throughout the Iberian Peninsula. And my line is this one here that you see in blue. In Portugal, it's the only one that we know that is in Portugal.
Okay, I guess you are showing another the full screen presentation. It might be.
I'm showing you a map of the Iberian Peninsula with some arrows.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So I see.
Okay.
It's spread here from the Basque country. Mm-hmm. Through to all directions, and I find descendants in the Iberian Peninsula, and my line is the only one in Portugal. And what now I'm trying to study here is how did it come to the Basque country, this line? And I have these two hypotheses. So you see here two maps. One is that. So there are some people that are in the south of France that you can see here, and I'm not sure if they show the pattern that it came here from the south of France. Sorry, they came from the south of France to the Basque country, or I'm not sure if they came from the sea, maybe from the north of France or from the British Isles, because there is a big so I can show you so there is a big period here from the formation of this branch 2,500 years ago until more than 4,000 years ago, where I don't know what happened in this period. I don't have people here descending in this part. So that is one of the things that I want to understand more. Where did it come from before being in the Basque country? The Basques have a very interesting genetics, because although they have this language that might be a Neolithic language, so different from the other languages that are Indo-European that came after the Basque was here. Their genetics is quite recent compared to their language. So the people were replaced, and so they have much more this R1b type of haplogroups that came after the Neolithic, and so they also have this strange duality.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I mean, haplogroups are very useful to describe the ancient history, the long-term history, but for the genetics, for the close genealogy, I mean, is sometimes it is less useful. For we can see the example of our common mitochondrial DNA. We are not able to, and probably will never be able to find a documental coincidence. However, the genetic coincidence is there, but here the thing is also the same, but the DNA explains more. For example, a possible migration of the Alans and a possible radiation from the Basque country. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a powerful tool.
Yeah, very powerful. So I could never guess that my paternal line was more than 4,000 years in the region that is called Portugal now. So I could never know this without doing some genetics, and not only me, but having other people doing the genetic tests. Because if it was only me, I wouldn't learn anything. This is a team sport. There is a need for other people to do the testing, for us to learn together what is the meaning of our tests also.
But you can do your genealogical research in Portugal. I mean, how possible it is to go back in time with documents in Portugal?
In Portugal, um, you can go back most of the times to the beginning of the 17th century. So there are some, the books have been kept for this long, usually. There are some examples where places where this is not true. For example, in the beginning of the 18th century, we have the French invasion here in Portugal, and several churches were burned and the documents were burned in this time. So if you are unlucky to have ancestry in those regions, then it's harder to continue the research. But for example, for me, that I'm in a small place in the interior of Portugal, I could go to the beginning of the 17th century for most of my lines, no problem. And compared with other countries, Portugal is a very easy place to do research. When I started, I had to go to Torre do Tombo, as I told you, the place where it's centralized most of the documents. Usually, when you start, you have to go to the district archive for a specific region, but then in the middle of the 19th century, then everything is already in Torre do Tombo in Lisbon. But now, for quite some years now, it's even easier because most of the things of the documents are digitalized and they are freely available online. So I can show you. If you go to this site called tombo.pt, here you just have to to choose the district. For example, mine, Guarda, as I told you. The municipality, again, Guarda, and then you can show the small village. In my case, for example, Albardo is the village of my parents. And then I have here all the books of baptism and the years, and I can choose one, and I can start going through the books and looking at the record. So it's anyone can do it anywhere around the world. This sometimes takes a little bit for a page to open. It depends on the days, but it's quite easier than having to move to some place and looking at the books in different places.
Yeah, and you can zoom in.
Yes, and you can zoom in. Okay, but this is just to give you an example. Now, and you have to learn different types of writing from different priests, but this is part of the game in genealogy.
That's great. That's great. Excellent. No, talking about the mobility, you told me it was lucky for you that your ancestors were in the same area for a lot of generations. Some other people doesn't have that luck. But I saw on your blog, because you have a blog, an analysis that you did with the cones. That was interesting. Can you tell us about that?
Okay, let me first show you on a map then. Okay, so this is me here, this yellow ball. So I'm the generation born in Lisbon. That's Lisbon there. And if I now go, so you can see here Portugal indeed. And these are my parents and grandparents. They are from this interior north of Portugal. Okay.
You have a jump.
Yes, exactly. I'm the only jump that you can see here with my parents and grandparents. Okay, so this is 4 generations of my ancestors. So if I now go to 6 generations, again, you see 6 generations of my ancestors are in this region. If I now go to 8 generations, okay, so it's the first time I have someone that comes from the region of Porto. This is the district of Porto, and one from Spain here in the region of Badajoz. Okay, all of the rest of my ancestors are in this region near Guarda. Okay, if I put them all here now, put all my generations, you can see. So continue to see that it's most of it's in this region. Okay. So when I looked at this, I tried to think about this in terms of dispersion, and that's why I did these things with the code. So let me see if I can find. I didn't open this beforehand. So I started this blog a couple of years ago because I wanted to share my findings with my family, basically. So that's why I started doing this, and that's why it is in Portuguese, so that my family can read it. So I started. I did a couple of posts called "Somos todos primos." It means we are all cousins. Okay? And my idea. So this is the region where my parents are, and here you see where my patrilineal line and my matrilineal line were born, just around this place called Albarca, where my parents were born. And then if I do a color scheme and say which of my ancestors were born in less than 2 kilometers from my parents' small village, and if I put them in red, and then less than 4 kilometers in bright orange, and then another orange for 6 kilometers, 8, 10, and 15, and I use this color scheme and look at my tree, what I get is this. So what I get is that most of my ancestors are in red, and then in dark orange, so they are very close to the village of my parents. And then you start to see some of them being a little bit distant, but very few. And so I did this with looking at this with the cones, saying, well, if it's quite likely that most of the people in a certain area around the village of my parents are all my cousins, because if we should find a common ancestor quite easily in the last 400 years. And every time I find someone from that region, usually, for example, if I find a notable person that I find that is from that region, I usually go and do a little bit of genealogy and find if they are connected to me, and usually they are. There is no way around it. So in a 15-kilometer radius, if I go 400 years back, most of the people in a 15-kilometer radius are my ancestors. So if there is someone, if this is a pattern that is repeated in other places, you have here another place that is close by. And if these two cones intersect, it means that we probably have a common ancestor that lives in between our two places. And so it's not only people that live in our 15-kilometer radius of my village, but a bigger radius. Most of the people I think I would find a common ancestor in the last 400 years. And if I continue back more than 400 years and do this cone a bit more and taking into account all the places I have ancestors in the last 400 years, I can build a bigger cone going back 400 years more using the same type of thing. And then I can see that most likely I will have all the people that live in these parts of Portugal have a common ancestor with me. And what the most sophisticated models of genealogy tell us is that if you go back 1,000 years, all the people in Portugal that have descendants nowadays will be ancestors of everyone in Portugal. So all the Portuguese will be descendants of everyone that lived 1,000 years ago in Portugal that still has descendants these days. So the people that lived 1,000 years ago are in either of these two cases. Either they don't have any ancestor now, so either they don't have any descendants now, sorry, or they are the ancestors of everyone that lives here.
Yeah, it has to do with yeah, I know that's a branching process. I mean, for the people, audience, please understand this. We both are physicists. That's a coincidence. Another a part of the mitochondrial DNA. That's a coincidence. We both are physicists. You studied the particle physics, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah, that's why you use the cones like the Minkowski space cones.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. This comes from general relativity. If you are not aware.
Yeah, I will talk to you on the backstage about something about the fusion on space. Okay, let's talk about it later. I don't want to leave the clues here. But oh my god, I forgot what I was going to tell you. The 1,000 years ago, it is likely that if any descendants have been left, it's probably of Portugal. Yeah, there are some studies. I will send you the links telling the same fact. Yeah. And so this is interesting because how do you I mean the cases where there are jumps, people from far away, do you exclude them to do the computations for the radio?
I started by excluding that in the 400-year case, but then when I go back 800 years, because some of the people I have here, ancestors here near Porto, and then I used it to do this bigger ball. So the bigger ball is the one that is around the area of the small village of my parents, but the rest is I didn't exclude it here in the 800 years case. So this is where I think it's most likely I have ancestors, but at some point this goes for all Portugal. But the problem is that when we are doing genealogy, it's easy when we are going back and looking for ancestors. What is hard is when we are trying to go forward in time, because a person is born and then it changes to another different place, and we don't know where it could have migrated to. So there is no way for me to find a person if it's not in the same place where it was born. And so surely there are lots of people that descend from this region that are in several places of Portugal, but I cannot say. One of the nice things of doing genetic testing is that I found people, for example, here in Peniche, in this region. So there is someone that came from here to this region, and there are descendants there. And I find people in other places of Portugal, here in Alentejo also, that the people that moved here, because my ancestor tree is very focused, but then the descendants of my ancestors might have spread much more that I can find without using genetics.
That's a very interesting analysis, and a lot of our followers love to do some computation, some maths. So I encourage them to do this and try to see if this is universal. Maybe perhaps the proportion rate between time and radius depends on the specific location, but it might be repeatable in all populations. So, but for the people that this is for the people that already have a genealogy, already have a tree, but for the people that is starting genealogy, what do you recommend?
Well, the place to start is with your closest ancestors. So you should start by gathering information on your parents, on your grandparents, starting by talking with the ancestors that you have still available to talk to, and then when you no longer have people to talk to, then start looking at the records. And this is made easier now with things that are available online.
And what mistakes do you recommend people to avoid?
One of the nicest things to one of the, in terms of genealogical research in documents, I don't have a lot to say in terms of mistakes. It's always try to find several records to document what you are looking for. For example, if you find a record for one ancestor of yours, it's always good to find records on brothers and sisters of this ancestor, so that they complement the information usually of the parents of your ancestor. Sometimes one record has an error in the place where they were born, or an error in a date, and so by having several, you can avoid having problems. In the genetics, what I would say is have an open mind. You can find unexpected things in your ancestors. So when I started this, I had no idea that I would find lines that would come from North Africa. I was really amazed what what I could find with that. With north of Europe, um, usually people, we are very focused on our very small time interval. We think, I'm Portuguese. I've always been Portuguese. My ancestors are Portuguese, and we forget that we belong to a tapestry of humans that have been migrating from place to place and mixing, and we are always a product of several people mixing from different places, and it's for me it's amazing to find these things. And
So, someone that is starting genealogy, do you recommend to do a DNA test right away or to wait a little to do a DNA test?
um, the DNA testing is always very dependent on what the people want to find, because we talked about the Y DNA testing, we talked about the mitochondrial, there is also the autosomic DNA testing, and they have different purposes. And I know people that are very little interested in knowing the long history of their lines. So for those people, I wouldn't recommend the Y or the mitochondrial. And then there are people that are very interested in this, like myself. So the recommend or not depends on the type of DNA testing that you want. For example, if you are more interested in close cousins, finding close cousins, then I wouldn't recommend that you do a DNA testing without having a tree first, because what the DNA testing will do is to help you find connections, but you need to have information on your tree and the tree of the other person to then find what is the connection between the two persons that you have DNA in common with. So for the autosomic, I would say start by doing the documental genealogy and then do a DNA test. For the other two tests, for the mitochondrial and Y DNA test, they are long-term tests. So what you will find out will be independent of the documental genealogy that you have. So it will always bring you new information on where your line came from, independent of you having done the documental genealogy research. So for these ones, I would recommend to do it whenever you want.
Yeah, always having in mind the limitations of each case.
Yeah. It's always good to talk with someone that has already done some testing to adjust your expectations, what you are getting from the different types of tests.
Yeah, in that case, I will say don't be afraid in asking. Asking your family for tradition, traditional history, traditional, history, verbal tradition. But don't be afraid also asking on groups, on Facebook groups, on chats, on writing the Portuguese Association, for example. Or in my case, I started writing researchers in Madeira, and I found a researcher that was able to help me. And now I know more about my ancestors. Don't be afraid. You're not
I
losing.
completely agree. Completely agree. I write emails to lots of people because, and I found lots of people. We found each other by writing emails because we have a connection. So the amount of helpful people that I found during my research is amazing. There are lots of people willing to help you.
Yeah, and be one of them too, and try to be nice to people, guide the people that is starting, and if you have some experience, And if you have any information, please try to share. If it doesn't compromise you, try to share the information, guide the people, because you don't know that those people might be the ones helping you in the future. Yeah. So, two closure questions for you. This is the first time I'll be doing this type of questions in English. I mean, this is my first time here, everything in English. If you could speak to one of your ancestors, who would you choose?
This is a hard question because I would probably choose a person that doesn't speak my language. So it would be hard to speak with them. So one was this example of a person of the haplogroup RPH1139. So I want to find out where does this line come from. So I would have to speak a language of the maybe Celtiberian or something like this to or maybe a Basque related language or something to speak with this person to learn where did this line come from.
Yeah, sometimes we have fantasies talking to our older ancestors, and we don't have in mind that they don't speak like us.
Exactly.
For example, I imagine sometimes living in Rome, but I don't speak Latin.
True. When I did a series in my blog about my patrilineal line to explain what I found out. And one of the things I thought at some point when I explained to you that my line was here in that region for 4,000 years. So most of the people in my patrilineal line could not speak with each other because the people spoke different languages. Some people spoke a Latin language that was close to that influences from the Arabic because of the north of Africa, and then the Latin language that comes from the close to the Romans that come, and then before that the Lusitanian language that we don't even know for sure if it is an Indo-European language, and before that we don't even know what languages they were speaking before that. So if we had a family meeting with all these people, they could
yeah, we don't know.
on. Yes.
That's let's not talk about religions because it's the same. It's the same.
Yeah.
Before Christianity, people were probably Celts in this region. That's the same.
Yes, exactly.
So the last question. Is there anything that you want to discover? Probably a brick wall, I don't know.
There are a couple of things that I would like to discover, but there is one in particular, because of this being in this rural place where my ancestors are in the very small region. I have a couple of ancestors, a father and a mother, that are my ancestors through more than 10 lines. Okay? So they are ancestors of 7 of my 8 great-grandparents. And so they are a kind of a focal point that I would very much like to find someone to test that descends from them, either from a patrilineal line or from matrilineal line, to find out where did the lines came from. So they are, I think they are the kind of Adam and Eve of my region, let's say, of my small village.
So, just to conclude, any final message that you want to leave our audience?
Well, This is a very subjective thing because you have to like genealogy to devote time to this type of thing. But one of the nice, interesting things I get from this is that I not only learn about my family, but I also learn about history of the region where my family live, about the day-to-day life of the people at different times, about the migrations of people. All of this is for me is very interesting, and I I would like everyone to know a little bit more about this because I think it brings us together to understand that we are so similar in this type of voice, in being descended from lots of different people.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's why I do this program. Because we are very similar. I have invited people from a lot of countries. This is the first time in Portugal, and we see the similarities. We have at least more than 4,000 years of history in common. At least.
Yeah.
At least. In America, we have a history in common in the last 500 years, but it's enough.
Yeah. And we have in common with other people also in Europe, with people coming from outside of Europe that are in common with other places of Europe. So we are connected with everyone.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your time, for your knowledge, for your research, and I hope you keep doing it like that and have more discoveries, more excitement. That's the most important part of the genealogy, the excitement in finding or getting mistakes and correcting them. And for the people watching, thank you. And please keep following us, keep watching. And if you have any comments, if you have Portuguese ancestors, you can write them in the comments. And see you in the next episode.